Special Veterans Day salute. I'm Al Parisi. I'm with the operations officer for the Army Air Forces Historical Association. It's a living history museum in Bergen County. We're really, really honored to be with you today. Thank you. Just quick, I did this before, among you. Give me a show of hands for veterans here. Veterans. Thank you so much for your service to the country. And we're honored to be here. We do this to honor our veterans from all theaters, World War II, Korea, Vietnam, and everything else. During World War II, we're going to roll the clock back here. We're going to go back 70 years. Picture yourself in England, and it's another day for the fighting troops. You're at an air base, and it's November 15th, 1944. And you have a special treat because unannounced, Bob Hope and his group has come into town. They're going to do a special program. So you've all been called, and it's a good break away from the combat and all the action that takes place and all the daily routines. So on that note, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for being here. And I just want to thank Bob Hope and his tour for coming in unannounced, but we've got a great crowd for you, Bob.
Well, thanks.
And again, I'm Major Parisi, and I just want to introduce Bob, glad to be here in one piece and away from Bing Crosby. Hope!
Thank you all very, very, very much. Thank you, Major Parisi. Thank you all very much. It's great to be here, And my name is Bob. That was my case of Rheingold that fell out of the Bombay Hope. And pleased to be with you here, telling all of you soldiers out there to use Pepsodent. Whether your mouth has a lot or a few, and even though your toothbrush may be strictly GI, your teeth will never be PU. And I gotta tell you, I am so happy, pleased, and proud to be part of this Armed Forces radio program today, this USO show for you this afternoon, because the military played a really big part in my family. You know that my aunt married a second lieutenant. Yes, that's right, a second lieutenant. That was after the first one ran away. And my Uncle Frank, he's a brigadier general. No, I got that wrong. He's generally in the brig. And he shared a cell just last year with my cousin. You may know my cousin. Corporal Punishment. Yes, that's right. And going back to the Civil War days, my great-great-grandfather was a very, very famous Union general. You might have heard of him, because everybody has heard of him. His name was General Knowledge. Thank you, miss. Thank you. So, gosh, I had a great trip up here. You've seen those beautiful, streamlined, modern trains? You've seen those? Well, our bus passed 6 of them on the way here. And our driver was very, very careful. He was very, very careful. Every time he drove through a town, he put his magazine down. And if it was a big town, he'd get the blonde off his lap. And I gotta tell you, the bus went through a tunnel and it got a little bit dark. And for a gag, I thought, oh, I'm gonna try to sneak a kiss from Betty Grable. Betty Grable. I thought I'd sneak a kiss from Betty Grable. And all I can say is, I must have accidentally kissed the drummer, or else Betty Grable better give up smoking those white owls. So we finally arrived at the base around 1 o'clock in the morning, and again, just for a gag, the trumpet player decided to stick his horn out the window and play Reveille. Well, they buried him this morning. You have a great laugh. And I was met at the base by the commander of the base, and he wanted me to speak to the troops right away speak to the troops. And I said, no, sir, it takes a good 4 or 5 days for me to come up with a great impromptu speech. And I had a swell time there in the barracks that night. We had to sleep in the barracks. Y'all remember and know what barracks are, right? 2,000 cots separated by individual crap games. So there seems to be a lull in the action here. You're not laughing quite so hard. A little lull in the action. I'd like to bring my good friend Major Parisi back on stage here. Just for a minute, we're going to do a couple of routines that we got worked on here. Major Parisi, and myself. Major, good to have you here.
Bob, thank you for having us.
I have to bring out my cue cards here.
Okay.
You know, radio. They're radio. Not always live. You have to do some of this stuff.
Well, first of all, most importantly, we really appreciate you and the tour coming out here, and it just means so much to me, especially all the boys in the entire squadron, the entire base, and the entire theater. Because I know you guys do what, 2 or 3 shows a day.
2 or 3 shows a day.
Well, we're really happy to have you here on our air base. That's the most important. That's the most important thing.
Is that a plane? Both flying planes.
Hopefully it was one of ours. You know, Bob, I'm a really big fan of yours. You know, your radio show was tops with us, especially when, before I left the States. You know, I've seen all your movies, all of them at least more than once. You know, Hold That Ghost, The Road to Rio, all of them. But I have to ask you a question. Are you one of those method actors?
Well, you know, Major, I never gave it much thought. Why do you ask?
I was just questioning if there was a method to your madness. You know, you work with such glamorous stars. Now, Dorothy Lamour, well, she really sends me. You think you can introduce me someday?
Well, Major, I don't see why not. You're such a big fan.
Oh, you bet I am. Oh, man. You know, before I joined the Air Corps, I was a commercial artist. Myself and Norm Rockwell, well, we did many covers for the Saturday Evening Post. Well, you know, I fly a P-38 Lightning, and many of us paint up our planes with pinup girls on the nose of our airplanes, and we all do it for good luck. Now, my plane, my P-38, her name is L'Amour Me Some More. And I just wanted to show you, here's a photograph of the plane and my artwork.
Oh, goodness, Major. I've seen Dorothy Lamour in some skimpy clothes, but here on your plane, she's not wearing any clothes.
You got that right, Bob.
Boy, you know, Major, that is an unusual take on the female form, I must say.
Well, you know, the only excuse I have for that is I've been overseas way too long. I had to draw it from memory.
Ah, that explains it, I see. Well, good luck to you, Major.
Thank you.
So, Major, did anybody ever tell you that you have a remarkable resemblance to Clark Gable?
Clark Gable? Well, you know, I kind of get that all the time. Now I got to find myself in the script. Yeah, I kind of get that.
Take your time, Major.
Yeah, Clark Gable. Yeah, I get that. I get that all the time. But you have to keep that under your hat, okay? Because otherwise, it's bad luck.
Oh, why is that?
Well, think about it. I'm a fighter pilot. You know, I fly combat missions all the time. The last thing I want to do is be gone with the wind.
Well, you know, Major, ever since we've been in England, I can't get over how chilly and damp it is over here. And I think I'm coming down with a cold. Is there a dispensary on the base?
Well, you know, Bob, we'll get the flight surgeon to take a look at you, but I can tell you right off the bat what ails you.
Oh, really? And what might that be?
Well, you know, like the rest of the boys over here, it's not hard to figure out. If there's anything I've learned in this man's army, it's this. If you have a headache, you take an aspirin. If you have a bellyache, you take a seltzer. But if you ache from the top of your head right down to your toenails, brother, that's dames and there ain't no cure for that.
Oh, did I have a line? Yes, I did. Well, Major, you may have a point.
Well, listen, I got to get Mosey in here because the skipper, Wayne Plastic, he told me I've got to go fly. I got to reconnoiter on a mission.
Reconnoiter.
Reconnoiter, sir.
Reconnoiter. I never did that, but I did wreck a Jeep once.
Oh. All right, Bob, have fun.
Thank you very much.
I'll be
Major.
around.
We'll be back.
Thank you.
Major Al Parisi, everybody. Major Al Parisi. Thank you. Just a little interlude. I have to tell you. Did I hear a phone? Is that my agent? I don't know, Major. We got to do some work on your painting skills a little bit. All right, so ladies and gentlemen, let me get back here and see where we're going. Again, thank you all very, very much for being here. It's really quite an honor. So at this particular Army base we're at, they have a canteen on base. You know, all the bases have a canteen. And at this base here, they sell coffee, Cokes, and sandwiches for a nickel. A nickel for a coffee, a Coke, or a sandwich. Except when the officers come in. When the officers come in, they charge them 50 cents. And that's what we call a surcharge. Yes, sir. No, sir. Yes, sir. 50 cents. And speaking of the officers, the other day at the Officers Club, all of the toilets were stolen from the Officers Club. Can you believe it? Every single toilet stolen from the Officers Club. And they've been investigating for a few days now, but they still have nothing to go on.
Oh, I just got it.
Major, why don't you hand me that joke?
It was a natural.
And that very same night, someone broke into the B-17 Nose Art Painting and Supply Room, and there were a couple of witnesses, but it was very dark, and the details are a little sketchy. Sketchy, little. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, miss. Thank you. Thank you. Got the peanut gallery over there. We went out for a little ride in the Jeep, right around the base in the Jeep the other night, and it was a little bit dark, and the Jeep broke down in the middle of the road, and I reached into my flight bag for a flashlight. Everybody here knows what a flashlight is, correct? It's a tubular metal container for storing dead batteries. At least that's what mine does. And then we passed the post chapel. Passing by the post chapel, the Major and I saw a cow standing on the front lawn of the post chapel, and I thought to myself, holy cow. Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. I tell you, gotta tell you, I really appreciate a great audience like this. And I was talking to some of the B-25 pilots. You know, the B-25 is a twin-engine airplane, and the B-25 pilots on the base were telling me that you always have, they were telling me that if you lose power in one engine on the twin-engine B-25, you still have enough power left to make it to the scene of the crash. That's what they told me. I didn't make that up. That's true. And then, you're not going to believe it, we were driving past the post chapel, going back in the other direction, and we saw smoke coming from out of the chimney of the post chapel. And I thought to myself, who's going to help me here? Holy smoke. Did you know that punchline, sir? You were waiting for it, right? I saw you there. The anticipation. You are a tough crowd, I gotta tell you. So, you know, the men don't think too much of the officers. Major Parisi.
That's what Casey said.
That's what Sergeant Casey says. They don't think too much of the officers because they don't think they're very smart. So the other day, 3 officers were in the woods on maneuvers, and they came upon a set of tracks. And the first officer said, "Those are deer tracks." Second officer said, "No, no, no, those are elk tracks." The third officer said, "Absolutely not, you are both wrong. I know, without a shadow of a doubt, that those are moose tracks." And apparently, they were still arguing when they were hit by the train. And that's officers for you. So anyway, oh boy, one of our planes turned up missing the other day. but we found it in the last place we looked. All right, you have to think about that one for a moment. Did you get that, sir?
I didn't even know the shit.
All right, you know, a very long time ago, when men beat the ground with clubs and sticks, it was called witchcraft. Today, they call it golf. And I tell you, the last time I played golf with Bing Crosby, he hit a birdie, and an eagle, and a moose, and a deer. Let's not bring him into this, okay? Thank you. So anyway, let's see. Yes, I tell you, fellas and ladies and gentlemen, I used to play a lot of golf. I used to play a lot of golf with Bing Crosby, but not anymore. No, not anymore. I mean, after all, would you play golf with a fellow who, when no one was watching, picked up his ball and tossed it closer to the hole? Of course not. And neither will Bing. So, ladies and gentlemen, a quick interlude I'd like to bring back onto the stage one more time. The effervescent Major Albert Parisi. And I understand, Major, that you've been singing around the NCO club, that you've got quite a voice. Is that what I understand? Quite the singing voice. Not only does he look like Clark Gable, but he sings like Bing Crosby, is what I heard. Is that true, Major?
No, it's all lies. It's all lies.
Come on down. I understand you're picking up some extra cash. Major Parisi here, but I understand you're picking up some extra cash singing at the NCO club. Is this true?
Well, maybe a little bit, but nobody buys my coats.
Nobody buys your coats. I don't blame you. You can charge 50 cents for those coats. Trying to resell them. The price goes up a little bit. But Major, I understand you have a couple of songs for us.
Yeah, I think we can share a couple of songs. Yes.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Albert Major Parisi.
We only do this in the officers club, Bob. Who told you that I can sing? Who told you?
Little birdie.
A little birdie?
Little birdie.
Well, did you know that a bunch of...
See, this guy's laughing at you already.
A bunch of frightened rookies were standing filled with awe. They listened as Sergeant Casey was laying down the law. They stood there at attention, their faces turning red. The sergeant called them over, and this is what he said. "This is the Air Corps, Mr. Jones. No private rooms or telephones. You had your breakfast in bed before, but you won't have it there anymore. This is the Air Corps, Mr. Green. This is the Air Corps, Mr. Green. We like our barracks nice and clean. You had a housemaid to do the floor, but she won't help you out anymore. Do as the bugler commands. He's in the army and not in a band. This is the Air Corps, Mr. Brown. You and your sweetheart went to town. She had you worried, but this is war, and she won't worry you anymore. This is the Air Corps, Mr. Jones. Thank you. This is the Air Corps, Mr. Jones. No private rooms or telephones.
Can't help you, Major.
This is live
I'm a
TV.
comedian, not a singer.
Anyway, I'm losing it. See that? You got me started. Okay. Well, you know, there's an old Air Corps favorite, and we sing this around the piano at the officers' club, and it's strictly an Air Corps song, so I hope you enjoy that too. Oh, come and join the Air Corps. It's an easy life, they say. You never do a lick of work, just fly around all day, while others work and study hard and soon grow old and blind. You'll take to the air without a care, and you will never mind. You'll never mind. You'll never mind. Oh, come and join the Air Corps, and you will never mind. Oh, come and get promoted just as high as you desire. You're riding on the gravy train when you're an Air Corps flyer. But just when you're about to be a general, you will find the engines cough, the wings fall off, and you will never mind. You'll never mind. You'll never mind. Oh, come and join the Air Corps, and you will never mind. You're flying across the ocean, and there from where you sit, you see the prop, it comes to a stop. The engine, it has quit. The ship won't float, you cannot swim, the shore is miles behind. You'll be a dish for a happy fish, and you will never mind. You'll never mind. You'll never mind. Oh, come and join the Air Corps, and you will never mind. I better quit while I'm ahead.
Major Albert Parisi, ladies and gentlemen. Give him a big hand, Major Albert Parisi. Thank you, Major. Fantastic, fantastic. And we have the rest of our crew out there. I want to point to your right, my left, the rest of the crew there. We have Sergeant Len Komar. We'll bring him up on stage towards the end of the show. We have Sergeant Lenny Komar. My very favorite whack, Private Kelly Komar. Sergeant Keith Marvel. Sergeant Pete Puccia. And of course, the effervescent Sergeant Kevin Casey. And I have to tell you, it's a very fantastic occasion, ladies and gentlemen, because just yesterday, Sergeant Casey got his wings. And Sergeant Casey loves his wings. In fact, tomorrow, they're going to feed him the rest of the chicken. Thank you, miss. All right, so I see some, any Coast Guard fellas here? Any Coast Guard fellas? You know, I do some tours, I do some shows, I get to talk to and tell some jokes to a lot of the Coast Guard fellas. And the Coast Guard, you know, they have a very important job. They go out on beach patrol and they guard our coast all the time. And they do a lot of rescue work. Yes, a lot of rescue work. One day on the beach, a sentry heard a girl yelling, "Help, help, help!" And he ran over, but before he got there, the guy in the car drove away. I have a fast car. I love this guy over here. Sir, what's your name? What's your name, sir? You right there. He's great, isn't he? All right, fantastic. All right, so you notice I have my iconic golf club that I bring on tour with me all the time, just because I do get a chance to hit a couple of balls. And this particular golf club here was handed to me just before I came on stage by Major Parisi. And you know, of course, what that makes it, right? That makes it an officer's club. It's a nice club. The officers always have nicer clubs than the NCOs. Oh, boy. So the commanding officer came into the fellas' barracks the other day, and he said to them, "So fellas, tell me, what type of steps will you take in case of a fire?" And apparently, really big ones was not the correct answer. And I gotta tell you, I used to be really indecisive before I joined this USO tour, really indecisive, but now I'm not so sure. But you notice that I time my jokes. Yes, I time my jokes. In fact, this is the 10th time for most of them. Right after Pearl Harbor, two brothers from Tennessee had this surge of patriotism. They decided they wanted to join the Air Force. So they walked barefoot to the recruitment center in Memphis, Tennessee. Walked into the recruitment office. The first brother walks up to the officer and says, "Sir, I'd like to join the Air Force." The officer said, "That's wonderful, young man. What can you do to help us in the Air Force?" The brother says, "Well, I'm a pilot." Officer says, "Fantastic. Fill out these forms, step to the side, I'll be with you in a minute." So the second brother steps up to the officer and says, "Sir, I'd like to join the Air Force." Officer says, "Well, tell me, young man, what can you do to help us
in the Air Force? Second brother says, well, I'm a wood chopper. The officer says, a wood chopper? We have no need for wood choppers in the Air Force. You might want to try the Army right down the hall. Second brother says, but sir, you took my brother. The officer says, of course you took your brother. He's a pilot. Second brother says, with all due respect, sir, I have to chop it before he can pilot. Oh boy, yes, so the gunnery sergeant was out with his girl, and they were having dinner at a lovely little restaurant off base, and all the gunnery sergeant could do was talk about his platoon, how great his platoon marched, how great they fired their weapons, how great they cleaned their weapons, how clean their barracks were, platoon. His girl finally says, you know, if I wasn't so sure, I would think that you loved your platoon more than you love me. And he replied, well, I might, dear, but it's strictly platonic. I gotta tell ya, okay. So myself and some of the fellows were on leave in New York City the other day, and we visited the Empire State Building, and we had to take the elevator to the observation deck because the stairs were stuck between floors. Should I tell that one again? Did that one just like fly over everybody's head? Alright, so we went to the Empire State Building, and we had to take the elevator to the observation deck because the stairs were stuck between floors. Oh boy, thank you. Get down to the end. I know it's been painful for you. Well, thank you very, very much. And you know, I gotta tell you that the War Department warned me against telling any political jokes this afternoon. But I gotta tell you, the way I see it, the problem with political jokes is sometimes they get elected. And a lot of you know that I did get my start on the vaudeville stage back in the 20s. You probably know that. But before that, what you didn't know is I grew up in a circus. Yes, I grew up in a circus. My father was a clown. And he wanted me to follow in his footsteps, but they were really big shoes to fill. All right, one more. Can I tell one more joke? And we're just about wrapping it up. But, so, ladies and gentlemen, the captain and his wife were at the PX, and they were shopping at the PX. So the captain sees a bottle of scotch on a shelf. He picks up the bottle of scotch and he puts it in the basket. And his wife says, what are you doing? He says, oh, it's a bottle of scotch. It's on sale. It's only $2.50. His wife says, we don't need that. And she puts it back on the shelf. So they turn the corner, and the wife picks up a bottle of face cream off the shelf and puts it in the basket. And the captain says, what are you doing? She says, it's a bottle of face cream. It's on sale for $5, and it'll make me look beautiful. And the captain says, so will my bottle of scotch, and it's half the price. Thank you all, thank you all, thank you all very, very much. Ladies and gentlemen, it's been a real honor and a real pleasure to be here with you this afternoon. We are, as Major Parisi said, the Army Air Forces Historical Association, and we spend a lot of our time at the Living History Museum dedicating ourselves to remembering the sacrifices that the men in the Army Air Forces made during World War II. We also pay tribute to all of our veterans from all different wars, no matter what the branch of service. So at this time, just once again, those of you who have served our country, please raise your hands so that everybody can give you all a round of applause. We have a little gift for some of you. Any World War II veterans? Just raise your hand. World War II veterans. We have a special gift for our World War II veterans here. Sergeant Casey is going to bring that up for you. Nice little lapel pins. Couple in the
Back
back
here.
there, Sergeant.
Now raise your hand, sir. Put it up there. You're not you. There's 3 of them.
All right. Well, again, we really want to thank you. We want to thank the Sunrise House for having us here this afternoon. We hope you've enjoyed our show. We really enjoy having the opportunity to come here. We have a nice little display over there at the top of the steps, some USO items and some home front items you might want to take a look at before you leave. We'll be more than happy to answer any questions for you. At this time, I would like to bring up the rest of our crew and cast, though, please, if I could now, to the stage. Sergeant Len Komar, come on down. Sergeant Keith Marvel here with us today. Sergeant Lenny Komar. Sergeant Pete Puccia. Sergeant Kevin Casey. And our CO, Major Al Parisi. And last but not least, the lovely whack, Private Kelly Komar. Ladies and gentlemen, I have to tell you, just a week or so ago, I understand, Kelly, that you were in Hollywood, and we had an opportunity to go out, and so Kelly, first time you've been in Hollywood, I understand, so what did you think of the place? What did you think of Hollywood?
Oh, it was swell. It was a lot of fun. I had a great time.
Excellent. I bet you wanted to meet a big star, right?
Oh, yeah, I definitely want to meet some big stars.
Yeah, well, see, then you're lucky you ran into me.
Do you know it?
Well, golly geez, and that's swell. Well, thank you all, ladies and gentlemen. I think unless Major Al Parisi has any final words, it's time for us to thank you for the memories. Thank you for the memories. Thanks for the memories. The sentimental verse, the pretty army nurse, the chuckles when the colonel says, "My God, Bob, you marched the worst." I thank you so much. Thank you, everybody. Ladies and gentlemen, once again, thanks for the memories. It was a pleasure to be here. Please, on behalf of the Army Air Force Historical Association, thank you. Wow, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you. It's a pleasure being here. We're more than happy to answer some questions for you. We're going to stick around, show you some of the displays. You are a wonderful audience, and we thank you very, very much. We are honored and privileged to be with you here this afternoon. So thank you. Good night, everybody. Thanks for the memories.
Thank you. Give them a big round of applause.
Take a look at the display, and I'm sure that'll bring back a lot of memories too.
They have a
Any
display.
questions, holler.
Photo op.